Yo, it's Canadian Underdogs. My guest today.
Dave, the voice, Boyce.
Hell yeah, man. Well, these guys have been at the RDS company for a long time. So when did you guys start this?
We started, it's pretty organic growth. Normally when you have a clothing company, it starts with a mission statement and a vision. You get investors and you have this business plan.
Yeah.
Whereas we grew up here in North Vancouver at a time when skateboarding was at a really small stage. It wasn't, there was no X Games, there was no Mountain Dew sponsorships, there was no Red Bull. So it was really an unknown and underground sport. It was known as a rebellious sport at that point. We didn't have Ryan Sheckler or Tony Hawk or these other people that were having video games and such. So it was a very individual thing. So at the school that I went to, which was Sutherland here in North Van, I think it would have been 1986, which would have been grade 7, grade 8 is kind of when I started. It was different. It was a trend. It was a hula hoop. It was a yo-yo. It was a video game. It wasn't the same as it is now. It wasn't a lifestyle. Skateboarding has become a true lifestyle.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
back then it was a fad. So in grade 8, you were cool if you were skateboarding, and I happened to like skateboarding. So I was a skateboarder. I wasn't the coolest of skateboarders because there was all the cool kids you had to compete with that were also on their boards. But then grade 9 came, and it was like, I didn't get the memo. It wasn't cool anymore. And they had moved on to whatever the next fad was.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you what that was. But skateboarding wasn't cool. But over that summer, I just progressed and got better, and so did all of my friends. And like I said, grade 9, we didn't get the memo. So we were more of outcasts at this point. So in grade 8, it's super cool. Grade 9, it isn't. Which is, like high school. High school is a very trendy thing.
Setting. Yeah.
And you have a lot of cliques. So we decided, since there was very few of us left, to start our own clique.
Okay.
And it was right at a time when gangs were becoming very prominent. Rap music was just coming into play. The Beastie Boys, Run DMC, and then movies like Colors came out. So it really gave us a bird's eye view, not a bird's eye view, a very small view of the gang culture. So us being blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids from North Vancouver, and a huge influx of Asian gangs here in Vancouver. There was gangs known as the Red Eagles and the Lotus Gang. We thought we'd make a joke of it. So we called ourselves the Red Dragons. So it was a joke. So we would write it on our grip tape. We would write it on graffiti walls, what kids do. We'd fuck shit up. We'd wreck stuff. But we were just these non-threatening little blonde-haired kids from North Vancouver. But what we didn't know we were doing is we were organically growing a brand as the culture of skateboarding grew. So as we got better and we got sponsored, we started to travel the world to hit up all of the contests. We'd go down to California to hit up the amateur contests or to film or these type of things. And we were being known as the Red Dragons. The Canadians were known as the Red Dragons. So as we traveled, it's like, oh, the Red Dragons are here. And then skip a few years, we go from the early 80s to the early 90s. We're now sponsored. We're all well known. We're all known as this Canadian group of skateboarders as the Red Dragons. And we've all started to make a little bit of money off of skateboarding. Skateboarding has now come into being cool again. So girls like us. We're making money. We're old enough to go to the bar. So we're rolling as a clique, and we're the Red Dragons. So we went from being these dorky little kids doing this dorky sport to being well known for what we were doing. So then it became time, what are we going to do with our money? So we went to a few of our sponsors and went, hey, the only business here in Canada at that point was there were skateboard stores and there was distributors. So the people that distributed all the product to the stores. And there was definitely more money in distributing the product to the stores than there was just selling it to the kids. So we went to our sponsors and were like, hey, we want to distribute your product here in Canada. And they just laughed at us.
Really?
We're 23, 24 years old. They're like, we're not handing over the reins of our $1 million operations up there in Canada just to you guys. That's insane. You guys go back to doing your kickflips. So what one of our sponsors did, the owner of World Industries, he was an ex-professional skateboarder himself, a risk taker. He said to us, look, I understand what you guys are trying to do. I went through the same thing.
Yeah.
If you open a store and run a store. Let's say you run it for a year.
Yeah.
I'll let you distribute our product.
Damn.
So that's when we opened our first store here in North Van in 1997.
Was that the one on 2nd and Lonsdale? Or?
It was on 3rd and Lonsdale at the time. And actually, there was 3 different locations on 3rd and Lonsdale before we moved to the location on 2nd and Lonsdale.
Oh, okay.
So we've opened the store, and so this is 1997, and it's right around the time when DC Shoes started. And one of the owners of the store, his name's Colin McKay. He grew up here in Edgemont Village. He went to Handsworth Secondary.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
The owners, and he was one of the elite athletes that was their when they first came out with pro model shoes, they came out with a Colin McKay and they came out with a Danny Way. So the owners of that company, says DC was very small at the time, they knew we had a store, so they were like, hey, can you distribute these shoes, DC shoes, in Canada? So we fast-tracked. We're only 6-7 months into opening the store, and now we're the distributor for DC Shoes across Canada.
That's crazy.
And DC Shoes blew up.
Yeah.
So we have the store, we have the distribution selling DC Shoes, and then we get a fax. This is way before emails. Like, there were emails, but we didn't use emails. There was internet.
Yeah.
We didn't use internet. You know what I mean? So we get a fax from a Japanese company saying, hey, we want to distribute your clothing company.
Damn.
But we didn't have a clothing company. We had a store that sold some t-shirts and some hats. But here in North Van, on Dollarton Highway, there's a Japanese college. So that the kids were coming in and buying up all of our t-shirts and all of our hats and then going back to Japan and selling them on a gray market. Because skateboarding was skateboarding in Japan in 1997 was the same as it was here in 1988, 1987. It was a trend. So they were buying up anything and everything to do with skateboarding, and the smaller the brand, the more niche, the cooler it was in Japan, because they're really trendy individuals over there. So we get this fax from a distributor, Charlie Distribution, and they were also the distributor of DC Shoes, another small company. So like, we want to distribute your company. So we're like, okay, well, we better start a company. So we have a store, and then we have a distribution, and now we're starting a clothing line. So in the distribution, then we started selling the RDS line to other stores across Canada, but not in the same way as it is now. Like, if they wanted it, we had some t-shirts, we had some hats. So then you fast forward even further. Retail isn't exactly a moneymaker. It's you know, if you're owning a skateboard store, it's because you're a skateboarder and it's for the love of the game.
Love, passion,
you're not gonna make money owning a skateboard store. You'll have ups and downs. You might have a year that you make a lot of money, and the next year where you barely break even. It all depends on the trends, our economy, all of these type of things. So we decided to, in 2003, to give up on retail. So we're fast forwarding again. And it was like, what is our main focus? Where do we make our most money? And now we're becoming businessmen at this point. We're learning, like, okay, we're not making a lot of money over here. None of us want to work in the store anymore. We want to work at the distribution. We want to work on the clothing line. We want to work and grow that business. So in 2003, we decided to shut down the store. And it took a little bit while. It didn't close down until about 2005. But we knew in 2003 we were changing our focus, and we were going to turn the RDS brand into Red Dragon apparel. So that's kind of how that came about. And then in 2003 we started pushing it, and we started advertising. We started, instead of just having hats, t-shirts, and backpacks, we started to build a collection. We started to make girls' clothes. We started to make snowboards. We started to make snowboard clothing. We started to build the accessory line. We sliding? You still here? We there? So we started to push that, and that was kind of where we're at today. You know, you fast forward to 2015.
See everyone rocking it on the streets.
You see people rocking it. There isn't a place I haven't traveled to in this world where I haven't seen somebody wearing it. If I go to Mexico and I'm at an all-inclusive resort,
you'll
there's
still see
15 people wearing it. I've checked into hotels in Japan, and the 2 people in line in front of me are wearing RDS, you know? So it's a pretty surreal feeling.
Awesome.
You know, at one stage, I'm married now. I've been married for almost 11 years. But wow, it really helped my game at one point. My girl game was on point, you know, running this shit. So, you know, it's I feel very blessed, you know, in all aspects. all of us have had to have an amazing influence on the people around us. We now have close to 45 employees.
Wow.
So the game changes, and your desire changes, your passion changes. And one of the things for me, which is the coolest part about the job now, is we have 45 employees. They have wives, they have kids. So we support that. We support families. You know what I mean? So that, to me, it's no longer the ego of seeing, like, well, when you're young, you're like, I want to get laid. You know, that's the goal of every young male. And then that goes away, and it's like, I want to see the clothes that I make on people, and then that goes away. And then it's always evolving and always changing. And if it isn't, then you're not in it for the right reasons, right? You can't always be like thinking with your dink. You can't be thinking with your ego. You know what I mean? Think business. So it's the fact now that we support as many people as we do through the business. That's the true cool part about the job.
That's awesome, man. I remember I went to your ad. I went to a store. They were selling Red Dragon stuff, and I was like, "Holy crap! Like, how did these guys get it out there?" I was so surprised.
It took a long time, like I said. Yeah, we started in the '80s as a little group of kids.
But now
started the store, the distribution, to the clothing line, and now we're at
big artists wearing your stuff. I saw.
Yeah, artists wearing our stuff. Yeah, Jason Ellis. Jason Ellis is a Red Dragon. He lived here in Vancouver for quite some time. Yeah, in the mid '90s.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of Seth Rogen, I think it was, too. He was rocking it.
Yeah, Jason opened up with his show on Sirius XM. Yeah. He's on 5 days a week from, I think it's 12 Pacific to 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. He's on for 4 to 5 hours a day.
Wow.
And that is in a huge vehicle for us to promote the brand. And he does an amazing job promoting the brand on his show.
Sure. That's awesome. What about you guys? I heard you guys you started podcasting too.
Yeah, I've been a guest on the Jason Ellis Show a few times, and from being a guest on the show, the producer, his name is Will Pendarvis, and he was like, "Hey man, you're really good on the air. Have you ever thought of getting into radio?" And to be honest, I had thought of that. It's like, it'd be a cool thing to do, right? So what I did was I came back from one of my trips maybe 2 years ago from doing a guest appearance on the Jason Ellis Show, and I started a podcast. So, trial by error. I learned how to start recording it. I learned what mics were needed. I learned how to do the engineering and all of those little things that were necessary. The hardest part was actually figuring out how to get it up on iTunes, to be honest. Like, you can talk into a microphone and talk into this here, like, how do you get it up on iTunes? So there's a couple hoops you got to jump through to pull that off. But once I figured that out, the podcast started to take off. And then 6-7 months into that, I got a call from Sirius XM, and they're like, "Hey, you're doing a good job. Do you want to be a DJ 3 days a week here on Sirius?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!"
Wow.
And then the next question came out of the guy's mouth. He's like, "Where do you live?"
Yeah.
He thought I was in California or something like that. I'm like, "Oh, I'm in Vancouver." And he's like, needle on the record, just like, "Oh, Canada?" And I was like, "Yeah, Canada." He's like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna have to get back to you." So then it fast forwards another year.
Yeah.
And then it's like, "Okay, can you record a show in Vancouver and give it to us?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" So it's now 6-7 episodes in. I think today is our 6th episode. And that's, each week I come up with a new topic. I have a co-host that helps me. Her name is Cupcake du Jour.
I know it.
She's
model, right?
She's a suicide girl.
Yeah.
So anybody can look at her online, and you can look at her on Instagram, and you can see her naked if you want to, which helps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you want to Google Cupcake du Jour, there's some nice provocative photos of her out there. And I have a young kid that volunteers his time. His name is Mark Murdoch. We call him the Murmur, because you don't hear him talk that often on the show. So that's his nickname on the air. He's a great kid. Yeah. And the three of us put together a weekly show that airs every Sunday at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern on channel 41, Faction with Jason Ellis, and it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, you've had a few guest appearances as well.
Yeah, we've had more people that are close to me, like Mad Child from Swollen Members, people like that, people that I grew up with. I got my very first skateboard off of Mad Child.
Wow.
We went to high school together.
Damn.
So we've had him on, and other guests too. We've had some porn stars on and things like that. I think next week we have Ali Hayes on.
Yeah.
He's a well-known porn star. So, you know, I utilize the people and friends around me to get who I can on the show.
Yeah.
Living here in Vancouver, it's a little difficult to get, you know, the same type of people that Jason has. I don't have a publicist that's calling these people for me. It's, you know, it's a very hands-on.
Yeah.
Everything that happens on the show is just the three of us doing it.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a lot of fun.
I bet, man. Like, with the sounds of it, man, I would love to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, it's one of those things, just don't make a glass ceiling for yourself. Shoot for the moon and just work hard.
Never give up on it.
Never give up. Just work hard.
You're one of the... Like, I was just checking out the other day, like, the brands. Like, every store I go to on Lonsdale, almost, like, skate shops, they have them. There's, like, we hardly have any, like, skateboard shops anymore left, you know?
Skateboarding is what I would consider a downturn. So,
for sure, yeah.
The economy here in Canada isn't doing as well as it has in the past.
Yeah.
Our dollar is trading at 30% less than US dollar, whereas for almost 5-6 years, the dollar was trading quite a bit, almost at par.
Close, yeah.
So oil has taken a big crash.
Yeah.
So Alberta being a driving market for Canada, for many years, it was what, you know, it was our major resource that we were exporting. So that's taken a big dump. The oil prices have dropped, our dollar has dropped, and that's really affected the economy of Canada right now.
Yeah.
So the first thing that goes when our economy goes is a leisure activity. And skateboarding is definitely a leisure activity.
Yeah. So is snowboarding, I think, nowadays.
So is snowboarding, but it has to snow for us to
It hasn't snowed,
It hasn't. Since 2010, we've pretty much, once again, it's been on a slide.
Yeah.
You know, I love snowboarding. Last year was the first year I only got 1 day in.
Wow.
And when I was a young man, when we first started all of this, I had the opportunity to get 100+ days a year.
That's awesome.
Whereas that, you know, I got one day.
1 day,
I got 1 day, and it doesn't look like the mountains are going to open this year.
No, not really. No, unfortunately. I was thinking of going to Whistler. I don't even think it's that great up there.
It's not good up there either, no.
Alright, man. Well, I don't want to take up much of your time. Thank you for those great words, man. That was a crazy story to hear about the whole RDS, how it came along, and the podcast you're doing now. Is there anything you want to tell the audience before we...
Just tune into you can tune on the podcast. You can download it on iTunes. It's called This Boy's Life. Or if you have Sirius XM, tune in every Sundays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, channel 41, Faction with Jason Ellis, and you can hear me rant and talk about all kinds of shit. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Hey, and sometimes there's porn stars on there.
Sometimes it's porn stars. We played strip trivia with them, which is fun. So the photos of those are a little bit better. It's more for me. You know, being it's radio and all.
Yeah, you can't really show it.
There's no visual.
No, unfortunately not.
But it's fun for me.
You're there, so.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much for doing
Thanks
this.
for having me. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.